back in the day, you would play these things in open E, right?
Right. Yep.
And so after playing all these things in open E, you went, well, gosh darn it, I'm going to find my own voice. And one of the ways that you did it was by playing in standard tuning, which is such an
Hmm.
efficient, I mean, there's so many benefits I know of doing that. You don't have to bring two guitars to the gig.
Right. Unless
You
you
know,
want
you
to, you know.
everything's just here we go. If I want to just start playing fretted, it's all the same stuff. It's just sort of
Hmm.
one system. Could you talk about the translation of doing things like hearing? You just played the Dwayne stuff that's in open E tuning, but in standard tuning, I mean, it might obviously be pretty second nature, a lot of it to you at this point, but can you talk about kind of figuring that out? And I would love to hear some more of that sort of, I guess like Dwayne inspired vocabulary, but
Hmm.
obviously like your sound. And I just want to kind of like figure out how that worked going from the open E stuff and making it just sound so fluent in standard tuning.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, like you said, I started out with just playing slide in general, but especially the Dwayne stuff. I started out playing it in open E, just because, like I said, I wanted to sound just like Dwayne at that time, you know what I mean? So I wanted to do everything he was doing. And yeah, so for years I was a open E guy for slide and then standard for non-slide, and I would switch guitars and everything. And, I, yeah, at a certain point, I just kind of it was a combination of like pretty much like you just said, wanting to find my own voice, but also feeling like I wanted a little bit more versatility out of the guitar, like not needing to switch guitars or not needing to, dedicate my life to learning how to play without the slide in open tunings, right? Because I feel like in order to really do that, you have to like really focus on it and spend a lot of time like working everything out, like how to be a full, like well-rounded versatile guitarist in open tuning, like a Derek Trucks or a Joey Landreth kind of thing. And I was going down that road for a little while, but after a certain point I was just kind of like, you know what, I don't think that's me, like I want to try to find like something else. Um, so yeah, and then once I actually made that switch, I would say, because there's a few different ways when you're playing that like Dwayne influence stuff specifically. There are different ways you can do it. Like the way that I think most people are initially familiar with, getting that sound in standard is kind of like the Warren Haynes sort of method is what I would call it, where you're really basing everything out of that major triad that's on the D, G, and B strings, right? So like say we're doing Statesboro, you would be really based out of this like seventh fret kind of area right here, and doing this kind of thing, right? So like, right, so like that's the kind of thing that Warren Haynes does a lot, and that's amazing, and that's a great way to get that open tuning style sound, and especially if you want to get like, because when you're playing in open tuning, a part of the sound is like kind of letting the strings ring together a little bit and kind of have a little bit of that like that kind of thing going on. So that was kind of the first way that I was like, looking at it, because that's kind of what had been done before and what I had heard before and stuff. So but for me, like after a certain point of kind of doing that, it felt a little bit like, I don't know, there were certain aspects of it and certain licks that didn't quite sound 100% right to me, like at least in terms of really kind of nailing that Dwayne type sound, which that was like a major goal of mine, or like a prerequisite almost. If like basically what I said to myself was like, if I can't get like a Dwayne style sound in standard tuning for those times when I want to, then I don't know if I'm gonna like stick with it. So like I said, like yeah, that kind of like that major triad box thing was only getting me so far. And so I kind of figured, well, why don't I just try to play those kind of licks on the same strings that you would play them in open tuning, but just kind of shift the box around a little bit. You know what I mean? So I wish I had an open tune guitar with me, but like, I mean, the typical box, right? It's kind of like that. It's mostly, if you're in the key of D, for example, it's based out of those two frets right there. you
And I
know?
can actually demonstrate that super quick. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, like that pentatonic kind of thing.
I'm in open E, everybody. So 10th
Mm-hmm.
fret would be the key of D. That's basically what
Exactly.
you're talking about, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that box right there. My, kind of the idea that I had was, which I'm not saying I'm the first one to do this or anything. I'm sure other people have figured this out for me, but yeah, I figured, well, why don't I just try to, yeah, take that box that you just played and literally just shift it around so it fits in standard tuning. Which, for me, I kind of look at it as a just kind of a different sort of shape of the minor pentatonic scale. That's kind of the most like sort of fundamental way that I look at it, which I kind of do it like this. So if we're in the key of D, it's like you're starting like this. Or I'll just go ahead and play them. So I'll just go like, right. So you're kind of starting out in this, I don't know, I guess you'd maybe call that fourth position, I guess. I'm really bad with the position names, but yeah, so you kind of start out down here and then you slide up to your first position and then, or actually wait, so, and then you kind of jump back here to finish out the scale, right? Instead of going, or you're kind of combining those two shapes, right? And for me, like why that works is, again, if you're doing this kind of thing, like, again, it lets you play the licks pretty much in the exact same way you would in open tunings. It's just a little more spread out. You know what I mean? Like it's like when you're doing the, you just kind of have to jump up 2 frets higher in order to get that thing going. But it's still, to me, it gets you a little bit closer to that kind of more authentic sort of open E sound. Once you kind of get the hang of that little bit larger jump there, you know what I mean? Because when you're in open tuning or specifically open E, like you just demonstrated, everything is just kind of like right there. Of course, you can, do more complex stuff and jump outside of that, but that, Elmore James Dwayne box is mostly just in that little 2 fret thing there. So when you're switching to, when you're trying to recreate that in standard tuning, it can be a little bit like, it can feel a little bit strange because you're having to jump further with the slide, right? But once you get the hang of it, to me, it gets closer to that type of sound than just only staying down here in that kind of D major, or whatever key it is, but like that kind of major triad box. So that's kind of like, once I figured that out, that's when I really was like, okay, I think this is something that I can like really, dive into and kind of stick with, because I was finding that with enough practice, I could get that. Right, I could get that type of sound using that sort of scale shape. So yeah, that's kind of how I approached it. I would say, with specifically getting the Dwayne type thing in standard tuning.
That's awesome, man. Wow. And right, just that sort of way of playing more like horizontally instead of vertically, I guess, right? Or
Right.
across the fretboard this way, and not just shredding your little. You can really turn your brain off and just go.
Right.
That's like
For
it's
sure.
the opposite of that is what you're trying to get through that way of playing and activating the fretboard that way, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's more like deliberate or purposeful, I would say, than
Right.
than just like mindless. You kind of have to, you kind of have to really be like not thinking, but you know what I mean. You have to really be like paying attention to what you're doing to kind of make that work, So
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, man.
That's thanks for such a great, that's just a lot of insight into your playing for sure right there.